Necromancy is RuneScape's newest skill and combat style, which is set to release later this year. This video will help you to get ready for the skill's release, so you can be among the first to achieve level 99 or even 120.
My brothers don't die, we just rusty bark. I tell your girl to link me at the coffee shop. My brothers don't die, we just rusty bark. We just rusty bark. Lie. My brothers don't die, we just rusty bark. I tell your girl to link me at the coffee shop. Getting freaky in the sheets, we're taking body shots. Then I finish with a facial just to top it off.
Necromancy will be RuneScape's fourth combat style when it releases later this year, and this will be the first time we ever get a new combat style introduced to the game. Just like magic, ranged or melee, it will be usable in all combat scenarios in the game, and will even get some exclusive bosses on release. There will even be content for people who prefer relaxed skilling, as Necromancy will offer AFK skilling in the forms of rituals. Over the rest of this video, I compiled everything that could be useful to you if you want to train this skill as quickly as possible. Let's start by talking about armor and weapons. When you start Necromancy, you will get a set of low-level Necromancy equipment. But interestingly, you will not have to buy a new set for quite a while, as you can upgrade this set all the way to level 90. To upgrade this armor set, you will be needing a couple of items, and we already know what some of those are. Those items include a set of spider silk armor, a set of mystic armor, and even a set of subjugation armor, so you can get those prepared ahead of time. There will also be some uncraftable unlocks. We already know for certain that at least one of the bosses is going to drop tier 95 necromancy weapons, so if you want to get those as quickly as possible, you're going to need to train the skill as quickly as you can, or you need to save a ton of money ahead of time, because these are going to be pricey on release. These bosses might also drop other amazing upgrades, like for example necromancy abilities, but this is all speculation at this point, so up until we know what those drops are, you can't really prepare much for those outside of just having a lot of money ready to spend. It's been confirmed that the draconic visage will somehow be useful for necromancy. Considering its current use in the game is to make shields for each of the combat styles, it is likely that when Necromancy comes out, its new main use is to create a Necromancy anti-dragonfire shield. So if you're looking to take on some dragons with Necromancy, then you should probably pick up one of these ahead of time. Although these days anti-fires will probably do the trick. Similarly, we know that the spectral spirit shield will be useful, and considering the three other spirit shields from Corporal Beast each represent their own combat style, I'm speculating that the Spectral Spirit Shield will just suddenly become the Necromancy equivalent of those shields. So if you're one who likes to use Spirit Shields, then you should pick this one up. If you don't typically use it, it's probably somewhat safe to skip it. Keep in mind, for those two items I'm making assumptions, so it is possible that they will have a completely different use for Necromancy, and that they will be an incredibly useful item or an ingredient in making even better shields for Necromancy. But for now, I think it is fair to assume that these will just be new Necromancy variations of those existing shields. We also know that when Necromancy releases, the Fight Kiln and Zug will both drop new Necromancy related capes. Somewhat interestingly, the Necromancy capes will look like the existing magic capes in game right now, and the magic capes will instead be changed to blue to keep consistent with the existing color schemes related to those combat styles. Considering how good all the other Zug capes are, it's fair to assume that you will want to get the Necromancy cape as soon as possible. To do so, you can get an igneous stone from Zug ahead of time, and then when you have leveled up Necromancy enough to take on the Fight Kiln, you will be able to upgrade that Fight Kiln cape to the Zug cape immediately. You can also stock up on some pages for Full Books, Wen Books and Grimoires. We're not fully sure which ones will be the best, because there has been some talk that critical hits might be different for Necromancy. If you can, you should get yourself some Cinderbane gloves and a Ring of Death. These are hybrid items and will therefore work for Necromancy, and you'll be able to use them right away from level 1. The Essence of Finality is also likely to be extremely useful for Necromancy, as it is for all other styles. So make sure to prepare an extra EOF. If you don't want to invest a lot for a new EOF, you can also reuse one with a cheap spec weapon in it like a Gothic staff if you have one. Make sure you also prepare some invention perks for your new necromancy equipment ahead of time. All the typical perks you would use for other combat styles would be great for this as well, but I would like to mention one specific perk, which is invigorating. This will likely be much stronger for necromancy than all the other styles, as necromancy has an increased emphasis on auto attacks, and invigorating gives you more adrenaline per auto attack. Let's talk about combat supplies you should stock up on before the skills release, so you can spend more time doing combat and less time preparing for it. First up, of course, we have overloads, the quintessential stat boosting potion. These should be a big priority, as making them now will be easier than after necromancy. After necromancy releases, overloads will require a new extreme necromancy potion to be created to create an overload. Of course, if you have the level for it, you should also upgrade these to supreme and elder overloads. Because you'll be doing tons of combat, you're going to want to stock up on food to heal yourself, especially when you're learning the new bosses, and prayer restoration items as well. We know rituals will be one way to AFK necromancy, but once you get every useful unlock from rituals, it's likely that the best AFK combat XP will still be to do combat. So it would be a good idea to get yourself a nice stock of aggression potions. That way you can AFK a bunch of monsters for great XP rates. Weapon poison is a great damage boost and therefore will also be a great XP rate boost. The same goes for vulnerability bombs. They are just a straight up 10% damage boost and therefore will also be a 10% XP boost when you're training using combat. Another pretty safe bet are adrenaline potions of some sort. Combat DPS all revolves around adrenaline, so creating yourself the best adrenaline potions you can will help you get better XP rates. Some more niche potions to think about are Power Birds of Vitality, Power Birds of Accelerations, and Sticky Bombs. These all have their very niche uses in the game already, but one of the new bosses could have a mechanic where one of these becomes extremely useful. If you want to be prepared for that possibility, then you should stock up on a couple of these. We can't exactly be sure yet which familiars will be the best for training necromancy or to take on the new bosses, but I recommend getting a few Ripper Demons, some Blood Reavers and some Calgarian Demons to be safe, and perhaps a few Hellhounds and Yaks to prepare yourself to learn the new bosses. There's a bunch of different incense sticks that could be useful. You could look into all the buffs they provide and choose to make a few of those, and make sure to get yourself a lot of Viswax ahead of time, especially as an Ironman, because you can only get 100 every single day. And Viswax is super useful for extending auras, and if you are doing a lot of combat and doing a lot of bosses, you can go through that Viswax way quicker than you can make it, so make sure to have some ahead of time. Finally, another good thing to have are Marks of War. Currently, with Marks of War, we can buy a unique aura for every single style in the game. That is the Maniacal, Reckless and Berserker aura. Therefore, it is possible that a new Necromancy aura releases right away as well. And even if there is no new aura, these Marks of War are still super useful to get yourself life refreshes and aura refreshes, of course. If you want to get these marks in the most easy and AFK way, I can recommend you watch my Archclaysor video, where I showed you how I gained over 1 million Marks of War completely AFK. If you want to be fully prepared, you want to get all the codexes that have a chance of helping you out while training a new combat style. The most important one to prioritize is the Praisal Codex, which is confirmed to be useful for Necromancy, as there will be a new tier 99 prayer for Necromancy. And so having access to this prayer right from level 1 Necromancy will be an incredible boost to damage as well as XP. This Praisal Codex is actually the thing I'm currently hunting on my account as well to get ready for Necromancy. I did a ton of AOD back in the day and had plenty of codexes, but I drop traded all the spare ones for bonds. So far, I haven't been able to pick up the codex, but I have been able to get the Praisal Wand at 3250 AOD KC, which was also the final item I needed for the title, and full best in slot all styles. I will still have to continue AOD until I get that codex though. It would also be great to pick up a Demon, Dragon and Undead Slayer ability codex. They will allow you to increase your damage massively when fighting those types of monsters, which in turn will speed up your Necromancy XP an hour. Later in the video I will be talking about all the monsters I think would be great to defeat to train Necromancy as quickly as possible. Then there's a few codexes that aren't generally super useful but have some niche uses and could be super useful if one of the new bosses requires them to deal with their mechanics. I'm talking about Divert, Reprisal, and Storm Shards and Shatter. Again, these are likely not to be super useful, so don't prioritize these, only pick these up if you don't really have anything else to go for. If you haven't done much archaeology yet, then this might be a good time to train it up, as there are a ton of relics that are extremely useful for PvM and therefore will also be extremely useful to train the skill. Another upgrade to consider is the Disruption Shield spell. This spell allows you to completely negate an attack's damage. This is extremely useful when you're learning a new boss and you want to negate some extra damage. You can unlock this with produce points from Livid Farm, which you can also get from the Traveling Merchant. There's also a bunch of little quest rewards unlocks, like the passive Ring of Vigor and stuff like that. I won't be going over every little passive you can unlock, as that would drag out this video way longer, but I will leave a link in the description that can kinda give you an overview of all the quest rewards that could be useful that you might not have unlocked yet. So, you've got your gear, you've got your supplies, and are all ready for combat. Now you just need to get ready for the rituals. Rituals are an AFK skilling part of Necromancy, and it is required to do to unlock the better perks and abilities of Necromancy during combat. So if you want to get 99 or 120 as soon as possible, you're going to have to do some Necromancy rituals. I imagine, at least until people unlock all the unlocks from rituals, people will be doing rituals when they want to train AFK and combat when they want to train actively. When you're doing rituals, you will be needing an assortment of random items that you can already prepare ahead of time, and we already know what some of those items are. First up are bars, from bronze all the way up to Bane. You'll want to stock up on a bunch of these. Personally, I got over 1,000 of each. Additionally, rituals will require bones. The type of bone will depend on the ritual you are doing, but you will be needing pretty much every single bone. Luckily, from the early footage it seems you don't need that many. I think 500 would be safe, maybe more for the higher level bones if you want to be safe. The best way to collect these bones is to use the Death Note relic, which notes your bones, and then an upgraded Bone Crusher which allows you to pick them up. That way you can just go defeat the monsters that drop the bones you need, and then they will automatically go into your inventory noted. If you don't want to get these ahead of time, then it might be worth training your Necromancy on the monsters that drop the bones you need when the skill releases. You'll also need some wool from player-owned farm sheeps, so it would be smart to just replace whatever you have in your medium pen right now and start breeding some sheep until Necromancy releases, so you have a nice stock of those. I am fairly new to making RuneScape videos. If you want to support high quality RuneScape videos like this, then please do subscribe and like this video. Now that you have all these items, we should speculate about what the best ways to train the skill will be when it releases. I mentioned this before, but you will likely switch between rituals to unlock new perks and abilities, and then gain the bulk of your XP using Necromancy in combat. For the first few months, you will not be able to use any XP lamps or bonus XP on Necromancy. We aren't 100% sure which boosts will work and which will not, but the ones I speculate that will work are the Inspire Awe relic from Archaeology, which boosts your XP by 2%. To be honest, this one might not be that useful, considering you might be better off using combat perks which will boost your XP by boosting your damage. But it could be good to switch to when you're doing rituals. Another good one for rituals is the Wise perk, which allows you to get a small increase in XP up to a certain cap per day. And finally, there is the Torstol Incense Sticks, which give you a small percentage increase to your XP gain. Those are the boosts that I personally fully expect to work. Jagex mentioned that they will at some point release a full list of XP buffs that will and will not work, so once that list is available, I will update the pinned comment with the additional information. With boosts covered, it's time to talk about the monsters that you will defeat to get the best XP. Keep in mind that when this skill releases, everyone will be progressing through the levels at the same time. So, worlds will be full of people defeating the low level monsters when you're at the low level, and the same goes for the high level monsters. So if you want to make sure you don't have to compete for monster spawns, then you should prepare ahead of time by using Ushtabis. They allow you to capture the souls of monsters and put them in your player-owned Slayer dungeon. This way, you can grind them out without any competition. So if you want to be fully prepared, you should get a ton of Ushtabis ahead of time and fill them with the monsters you expect to be defeating to train Necromancy. Keep in mind, some monsters will be rebalanced on Necromancy release, so there might be better options out there than what we will be talking about in a minute, but assuming things stay somewhat similar in XP rates, your best bet will be to start training using chickens at the very first levels. They will be super quick to take out, and they'll still give solid experience for the amount of effort they take. But once you're comfortable moving on from chickens, I recommend you probably want to move on to banshees. This will be a common trend for a lot of monsters, but these monsters are classified as undead creatures. The reason undead creatures are great is because they have a bunch of damage increasing effects that work on them alone. Those being the Salve Amulet for a 20% increase to both damage and accuracy, up to 14.5% increase to damage and accuracy if you're on a Slayer task such as an Undead Slayer task, a 15% damage boost from the Undead Slayer ability we mentioned earlier, another 10% increase to damage if you wear the Ghost Under armor and the creature is also classified as a ghost, which banshees and a lot of the ones we will talk about soon are, and then another 7% increase to damage if you have the Undead Slayer invention perk. All of these combined make undead ghost type monsters an amazing target to take on, as you can reach a total boost of 66.5% increase to damage and 34.5% increase to accuracy, which means that if your accuracy actually matters at that monster, you will be dealing up to double the amount of damage before even considering any other damage boosts like potions, perks and other effects. So with all those buffs in mind, I believe a great candidate for monsters to focus on beyond the Banshees will be Aberrant Spectres, and after that Spiritual Warriors. These both also benefit from all the buffs I just mentioned, as they are also undead ghost type monsters, which makes them great choices to get past the mid levels. Once you get to the upper levels, you get to the classic XP training Slayer monsters being Abyssal Demons, Dark Beasts and Aerids. All these monsters will likely be AFKable to some extent with Necromancy and can be put in your personal Slayer dungeon as well. Beyond these, you can also train Necromancy by using Necromancy while doing bosses. This will still be great XP and you'll be having fun training the combat style. And if Necromancy has some good area of effect abilities, it might also be great to train Necromancy in Shattered Worlds. I'm sure I missed at least some things that could be useful to prepare for this skill, so if you can think of anything, let me know in the comments and I'll be adding it to the pinned comment. I'm super excited to get into the skill when it releases this year, but for now, subscribe for more high quality RS3 content, and as of today, you can also become a member by clicking the join button right next to the subscribe button.